welcome to another episode of Tech About Town, brought to you by Communitech and Elevate IP. I'm Alex Kinsella.
I'm Mohammed Kamla.
Today we're back in the studio. It's your second episode. You came back.
Yes, I did. It was the first experience was really amazing. So I thought, why not? Let's just do it.
It is interesting because I find when we make the offer to have guest hosts on the podcast, as we like to include as many Communitechers as we can here in the studio, a lot of people are scared of it.
Yeah, it is a bit nerve-wracking. I heard Alison Peel's podcast as well. She said that she's a little, nervous. But at the end of it, she was like, fine. So.
I do feel like you and her are naturals. Very, very good. Matt Klassen. Matt Klassen did a great job. I've asked a couple other people, and they looked at me like deer in headlights and would not come on. I'm like, just come on, we'll chit-chat. And this is where I segue into my little intro. Whether it was a PSA on TV or an ad inside a bus, we've all learned the fast method for detecting a stroke. Each year, 12 million people suffer a stroke, and unfortunately, 6 million of those end in death. Today's guests have spent their careers in medtech companies working to commercialize and develop a variety of medical procedures and devices. Then something interesting happened. One of our guests had the idea. They went on to YC to do founder matching. They got matched, and it turned out that their new co-founder, just lived 10 minutes down the street from them.
I mean, that's just fantastic that, you have not met anyone for a while, and then you just randomly get connected online, and you find out it's 10 minutes away. So you're building a company with them. Yeah. That's just amazing.
So we're excited to welcome our guests, Kevin Macwan and Purvish Soni, who quit their day jobs to launch Sensible Vascular. They are developing a faster, safer, and more effective thrombectomy solution to remove clots after someone has a stroke, resulting in better patient outcomes and fewer deaths. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
I got through saying thrombectomy.
Excellent.
That's like there's like extra E in it, and it threw me off when I was reading it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I probably just typed it wrong and got the wrong spelling.
Listen, it's a tongue twister.
We're excited to have you here today. We didn't get a chance to meet, but I did hear you pitch at the Startup Bootcamp Showcase Pitch Competition, which is a tongue twister as well, back in June.
Mid-June.
In June. You won that competition, which was pretty awesome. It was a really great pitch. Your family was there. Was your family there too? No, your family was there. I saw them. They were pretty excited. Just before we get into the product and what you're working on, kind of like what's happened since then. So you came into the program. Was that your first like accelerator boot camp kind of thing?
Yes. That was our first experience in really any capacity, being a part of an incubator accelerator type program. And it was also important for us. So coming into the program, Purvish and I had really only started. We weren't even incorporated at the time, so it was very, very early days. But the program was kind of our first external validation, I would say, where we felt like we were doing something different, we were doing something real, and we were doing something that actually had some oomph behind it, which is what the program was able to give us. It was. We were very lucky to have been accepted into the small cohort, and we later learned that we were the only medtech company there, which was also made it a unique experience for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have a question regarding this program. What was the one learning you took out of that program that just changed your thinking or direction of your company?
Yeah,
for the better.
No, that's a good question. Yeah, so I have a CEO role in the company, and so I try to keep myself away as much as I can from the R&D and the technical side of things and immerse myself in everything else that needs to be done for the business. And one of the biggest learnings that Communitech taught me is that the success of our business is not actually going to be the product or even the customers, or even kind of our own abilities through our prior lives. It's really going to be the network that we build and the people that we interact with over that time, and the family environment and the community that Communitech has actually created and was able to offer to us, to random people that they'd never met in such a short time period, was, I would say, the biggest learning that we were able to extract from this program.
That is amazing, and simply put, your network is your net worth.
Yep. Very well put. Yeah.
I really I want to have you co-host all the time now. This is fantastic.
I enjoy it. So
I enjoy the content. Well, it's interesting. Did you know that And when people describe it this way, I still kind of blink when they say it. But this is a medtech campus where we're at right now, because we have McMaster, Velocity has a lot of medtech happening in it. And then within Communitech, there's a bunch of things happening. Did you know that kind of coming into the startup bootcamp, that there was this kind of nexus of medtech happening here?
To be honest, no, I had no idea. I didn't even realize there was a medical school here. I learned that afterwards while I was in the program. I was like, what do you mean Mac has a campus here? I had no idea. That's my bad. I wish I had known. I wish I had done the research, to be honest. But I would say our entry into Communitech was also one where, in Canada, we found ourselves as a company that wasn't actually doing the thing that was the hot topic at the time, which was AI and machine learning and algorithms and robots and things like that. And we were developing hard tech, and it was difficult for us to even identify where would we begin. And there's a sheer lack, I would say, of availability of programs, and Communitech really fills in that gap in allowing entrepreneurs like us who are developing something that is going to take a very long time to develop and bring to market, still giving us a chance and placing their trust in us and inviting us into programs like this. So I wish I had known about the ecosystem that exists in and around Communitech, but I guess now I do.
That's amazing. I think Communitech's focus is on founders. So it's built by founders for founders. So this is very, very... I love that, to hear that you got that value and you understood something that you, prior to that, you had a different way of thinking about. So I'm very happy to hear that. There are other resources that you can take advantage of as well. We can go offline and we can chat about it, or you can just go onto the website and take a look. There are different programs. There's a medtech program that would be very, very valuable for you. So just take a look, or we can discuss later.
Mm-hmm. I like that you're selling on the call.
I told you before that I am a seller at heart.
I love it.
I'm a salesperson at heart.
He's in Mo mode right now.
So I want to kind of go back a little bit. So we talked in the intro. You met through a matching program through YC, which is awesome. Before that, though, you both worked at the same companies. Which company was that you both worked at together?
Yeah, it's a company called Medtronic.
Okay.
So Medtronic is the largest med device company in the world. And so I spent about 7 years there. And
I spent about 10 years at Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, Medtronic's massive. It brings it's a $32 billion a year revenue company, extremely well diversified. So I worked in a number of businesses there. I was in the cardiac division, aortic, peripheral vascular, spine, as well as neurovascular, and Purvish in a similar vein.
GI, yeah.
Had the opportunity to work through a number of businesses. So yeah, that a good formative experience for folks who want to do things like this in the future is always to start at large global strategic companies like Medtronic, Abbott, Boston Scientific, so you can essentially get a free MBA, learn about all of this stuff. It's not an actual MBA. I wish it were, but you get to essentially learn while being paid. And acquire skills that hopefully you'll one day use in an entrepreneurial journey in the future.
Yeah, I was gonna I had that same experience when I worked at RIM, because it was large at the time. It was 17,000 people worldwide. It was a good chance to learn how large enterprises work and still develop skills and kind of long term, and the network side of things, which is still a crazy thing where I feel like everyone I know worked at BlackBerry at some point.
Yep, and the network lasts you a lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. And they're all going to go different places. You're going to go different places, but those bonds never break. And so that becomes the thing that consistently gives you benefits, no matter kind of what you're doing and where you're going.
One of the big benefit of working in strategics as well is a lot of the processes are already established. So while you're working there, you're learning and using those processes. So after you gain that experience and you're doing your own startup, it makes it much more easier to accelerate your progress.
Yeah, the skills, right? Yeah. You know what it takes in the process and actually how to do something versus... I find there's a lot of times first-time founders don't have that experience. They don't know how to... anything from basic bookkeeping to incorporation to HR to whatever, right? You've kind of seen those things. Even if you don't work in HR, you learn about HR from working in a large enterprise company.
Mm-hmm. And you've kind of de-risked your business before, right? Like before you started this business, because of your practical knowledge, you have those ins and outs. Mm-hmm. So when the time came, you made sure that you don't make those mistakes or the costly mistakes, which could have costed you a fortune. now that you are in a better position, more educated with practical experience, this puts you at a better place. And from a lens of an investor, that's also de-risking their business. So fantastic.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mo. That was one of our biggest things is we didn't come into this thinking, wow, we're hotshots because we came from Medtronic. We, quite frankly, didn't mention that at all. We were focused much more on the product and the unmet clinical need and why our solution was going to be a differentiator. But the investor aspect, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was the one thing as first-time entrepreneurs, it's very easy to get bogged down directly into the product piece. And you're not thinking, how am I going to demonstrate value to the ultimate people who are going to fund this progress, which is investors. And they're the ones who actually told us, guys, the reason we trust you is not because you have a cool solution or you're creating something that is meeting an unmet clinical need. It's because of your backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And that's when we realized, okay, we really need to tap into the experience that we've gained to provide the degree of confidence that investors are going to need.
So then kind of leaving your last roles then, you met through YC. When was the first time you realized that you lived 10 minutes away from each other? Because that would have been, to me, like that seems, it'd be like a light bulb moment or a laughable moment too, where you're just like, how did that actually happen?
I don't know exactly when we realized the address piece, but so the way it worked is exactly like a matching service, right? It's a swipe based thing. And then you get a whole bunch of matches and there's folks from all over the place. And so I reached out to Purvish and just sent him a message. Hey man, you want to go grab a coffee and just chat? And that was in Burlington, is when we first met. At that point, I knew he lived in Burlington, and he knew I lived kind of in the Hamilton area, but we had no idea that we were as close to each other as we eventually discovered. I think when we first realized is when he came over to my house, because a lot of our early work was done in my basement, tinkering away and coming up with ideas on white papers on the walls. And when he came over, he's like, dude, this was a 9-minute drive. And I was like, oh, I see. So I would say that's when we first got to know of our proximity.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I mean, YC's whatever, how many thousands of miles away, and they're still able to match two people in Stony Creek in Burlington.
Yes.
I never asked you, when did you create your YC founder match profile?
That's a good question. I would say it was an iterative process because it's not one of those things where you can just slap a picture and a couple of line items. There are like 50 questions you have to answer, and then the profile gets vetted by a human being. So you really have to do the work. So I would say it was probably, I don't know, July, August of last year when I started. And then we met later on after that, right? So,
yeah. So I made a profile about a year ago, and I was looking at like a co-founders and all, nothing, doing my own day job. And all of a sudden I see a message from Kevin. It's like, hey, do you want to meet up? I have some ideas. I want to chat.
You know how in relationships, one of the partners asks the other partner, "Are you still on those apps? Are you still on that app?"
That's it. Yeah. But I think my profile is a pause now. I still get matches, but I hope I'm not getting matched to anyone else.
YC made Tinder's founders.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
YC was the original Tinder, huh?
Yep.
Oh, Tinder. Yeah, all those things, the apps. So going from there then, when, we're going to get into the product and to the idea, but when did you decide to actually make the move full time? Like what was the kind of inflection point? Because as you're tinkering in the basement, whiteboarding and putting stuff up on the wall, we've all been in those sessions, right? Where you like, this could work. This might do it. We don't know if there's a customer for this one yet. This might have some risk. What was that point that you're like, hey, this could be the thing, we should go? And then second to that, it's obviously a risk to do it, right? To quit your jobs, benefits, everything. How did that play into making that decision?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Alex. So to your first question, I would say that when co-founders meet each other for the first time, like a relationship, right? You're assessing each other, sussing each other out to get a sense of, hey, is this person who I think they are, and kind of conversely. And for me, it was to understand whether Purvish had the technical and R&D capabilities to be able to bring this idea to life. And from Purvish's end, is this guy as good of a marketer or as good from a commercial standpoint? Does he have enough physician connections? Does he understand the work that is necessary here to be able to make this successful outside of my technical abilities. And I would say we spent a considerable amount of time essentially educating each other, me educating Purvish on the unmet clinical need, on the problem statement, on the solution, the features that I envisioned in the solution. And Purvish spent a considerable amount of time educating me on the R&D developmental process, which I knew nothing about. Once we had that kind of a more baseline level of understanding of what this was going to take, we then spent a lot of time in my basement just coming up with not just ideas, but developing prototypes and testing them in rudimentary fashions to understand whether the core concepts that we were developing were actually workable. Forget in human beings or in animals or anywhere else, do they work on the bench? And it's very critical for founders, especially in medtech, where these devices are going to be used in human beings, to perform that early validation. Once we're able to get some degree of validation that, hey, these things can actually work, we'll optimize them later. But that was, I would say, the first inflection point, because we had a clear understanding of what the disease state was, what the solution was, what was it going to take to actually bring this to market, and now we had the additional confidence that, hey, this can actually work. I would say that was kind of the key inflection point when we decided, hey, let's move forward with this. Anything you'd like to add, Purvish?
Yeah, no. So you hit it. You hit all the good points there. One thing I would add to that is that, yes, I knew the thrombectomy space and neuro space, but the solution that he had it in his mind, it was completely his, and he was working on it for a long time. So I had to catch up with what his thoughts was and everything. So that was a long process to be able to make sure that I am on board with his idea, that what he's proposing, and also and what he was talking about, a tinkering and all, that was more of us validating for ourselves first. It's yep, this is the solution that we think that it will work, and it will provide a better solution. So that was the first leg of the work for us, to basically understanding each other, making sure that we are comfortable with each other, we have the right solution, and it's going to provide the biggest benefit to the patient.
I love that, because you knew the space, you had a new approach to the space, and that's innovation.
Yep.
Yeah, and Kevin had a background in health sciences from Western, so the visionary with his experience at the clinics, and then Purvish being a design engineer, I think is a perfect complementary set of skills. One thinks, one actually brings it to reality. So I think it's meant to be.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of going back to YC as well. That's one of the things that they initially recommend is, do you have a technical founder and do you have a business founder? Those are the two core things that your business is going to initially need. You don't need to start with marketers and HR and all of that stuff. You'll build that over time. But do you have the business know-how and do you have the technical ability to execute? And our roles and our experiences kind of fill that. And then kind of going back to your second part of the question, neither of us would be here, quite frankly, and would have been able to take a leap like this without the support of our families. Yeah. Our wives are the sole breadwinners. So it's a leap because we were both in well-paid jobs. We both had established careers, and so not only are we now spending money, we're also not making money. So it's a double loss, and there's additional pressure, in our better halves and our kids and our extended families. Who have all stepped up essentially and said, "Yeah, guys, we believe in you. We're not investing yet. Don't call us for the friends and family around just yet. But we trust you enough at this early stage to give you the leeway and the freedom and the flexibility to be able to explore this while we're going to take care of things in the background."
I think that ties back into what we were talking about earlier as well, which is you built up that experience in larger companies and in startups. You kind of had that understanding where. And not to put young founders down, but if you're fresh out of school, you haven't built that stuff up yet. You have less responsibility and other things. You can take that risk, but as more established in your career, like you said, you need that family support, that family belief to really make that leap and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't be here if my wife said no.
That makes sense. So I just want to say it's not. I disagree with the double loss part. I think you're investing, and you're investing not just for yourself, but also for humanity, because you're gonna help solve this big problem that the world of medicine has. And I also do believe that your families are still investing. They are putting food on the table. They are taking care of your family, and so you can focus solely on it. So I feel like it's all investment. There's no loss. What's the worst that will come out of it? You become better at your job. You become more enlightened. You have more experience. Now that you have the ability to handle P&Ls, you will be more valuable regardless of if this works out or not. But it will, from what I have seen, the value of the product that you're bringing and what I have seen, I think you guys are going to crush it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we hope so. Speaking of validation, that's the other piece. So you have kind of families that give you the early validation, and the founders where we kind of figure these things out between ourselves. But then the biggest customer for us is going to be the physician, who's the ultimate decision maker, right? And so kind of going down that process, that was the next thing we did afterwards. Even though we had very rudimentary prototypes, we had sketches really on napkins and on PowerPoint slides. But we basically took those and did a circuit around some of the big centers in Ontario, London Health Sciences Centre down in Toronto, as well as Hamilton, just to understand, hey, doc, are you guys on board? Like, does this make sense to you? Are we on the right track? And we're able to get some early validation from them, even at the rudimentary prototype stage. So, I mean, for listeners of the podcast, I would say if you have ideas and stuff, particularly in the medtech space, please do spend the time early on. It's going to be tedious, but do the work to validate it internally, and then go and talk to your customers as quickly as you can, even if you are at very, very early stages, because that confidence is what's going to be needed for you to continue forward, because it's not going to be an easy path.
Yeah, you don't need a polished prototype. You just need you need the skills to back up what you're saying, and then something that shows it. Let's actually get into the product then, right? So as we were talking earlier before we started recording about strokes, the efficacy rate of the current treatments for strokes is 30-something%, whatever.
Correct. 30%? Between 35 to 40%. That's measured through a metric called FPE, or first pass effect. So how good is the device at removing the clot the first time the physician tries? That happens in less than 40% of the cases.
And I think heart attacks and other cardiac events, they kind of take the mind share of things when we think about angioplasty and other things, where with a stroke, we just like, oh, so they suffered a stroke and they went in and they came out. And we never really talk about that treatment, which is removing the clot and removing as much of it as possible, or all of it. Like, what is like the goal with your product is it 100% removal of the clot, or as close to 100% as possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's always difficult to quantify these types of things. Of course, you want 100% in everything, but the reality is healthcare and medicine there are a lot of uncertainties that human beings cannot fully intervene upon. So our goal is to improve upon what physicians are able to deliver at their best today. And that best today is in the 35 to 40% range. Early conversations with physicians have indicated to us that even if we're able to make a 5 to 10% improvement incrementally on that, that would in itself be a game changer. And we're targeting much, much higher than that. And some of our bench testing so far is demonstrating that we could probably remove the whole clot in a single pass. That'll, of course, never materialize in reality because of the technical challenges involved, but that's certainly our North Star.
And with stroke, like it's one of those things where we recognize symptoms, but it always seems, even for me, like I have no one in my life who's ever suffered a stroke. Now I have had people with blood clots in their lives. What is kind of that? Is there education on the consumer, on the patient side of things to talk about this as well? Because I think a large part now of medicine in the US and in Canada is patients being advocates for themselves. Mm-hmm. Right. So like, do you see this as like also like a patient education, so that if let's say, I had a family member who had a stroke, would I be like the kind of person who could advocate for your solution? Or is this really targeted towards physicians, where the physician needs to know about it versus patients?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, for any medtech company, yes, our ultimate customer is going to be, especially for complex medical devices, the ultimate customer is going to be the physician and the key decision maker. The education and the awareness component, as far as patients being aware of what the disease is, how to recognize it, especially early, so that you can see the right physician and get care at the right time. That piece is something that is critical across medtech. And most medtech companies, including our former employers, there was heavy investment in non-product related but disease state related education for patients. And that's something that we're going to heavily integrate in our business as well. Purvish's family has been touched by stroke before. So it's Purvish, you're welcome to talk through it, but he has a much more personal connection. My family, thankfully, has not been touched by stroke. However, stroke is one of those things that could happen to anyone at any time. There are certainly risk factors from a smoking standpoint, blood pressure, hypertension, coronary disease, or heart disease. There are risk factors involved that patients or human beings can control to reduce their risk, but this is something that can happen to literally anyone at any time, often without any real reason behind it.
Yeah, and to add on to that one is that for patients, particularly for the stroke, when patient has a stroke, the time is the key. Time is brain. So knowing that patient is having a stroke and going and getting the right treatment is the more important aspect. Whether they use whatever the device we come up with it or not, the physician use it or not, that is a secondary thing. But knowing that patient is suffering from a stroke and getting the treatment, the sooner the better, is the main important task here. And that will be one of the big educating piece for the patients.
So the stage you're at right now, you got accepted into the Forge at McMaster. What's kind of your expectations for that? Like, what attracted you to that program, and kind of what's that path going forward now to true commercialization?
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be a 3 to 4 year journey for us. The Bootcamp allowed us to get our feet wet, so to speak, and get some early kind of credibility and validation for what we were working on, and just to get a sense of what starting a company feels like. The Forge is a 12-month incubator program, and it's sector agnostic. So we're working with we're part of a cohort where there are a lot of non-medtech companies, and so it gives us the opportunity to interact in a more broader way with all types of founders from many different walks of life, which is really nice. The Forge also comes with some office space, and it is centrally located within the McMaster Innovation Park, which is really the heart of the McMaster University's innovation ecosystem. So really nice central location, and it's only been about a month now, but our experience so far has been really helpful. At early stage, all you're looking for is a place where you can work and have the right type of advisory support around you, so that you can go to someone when you have questions, and we have many questions, and the Forge has been able to provide that, and will continue to do so for the next 11 months.
That's amazing. That is great. And as a founder, it's very important, as we mentioned earlier, your network is your net worth. So the more connected you get in this space, the higher the probability that you'll be successful, or your company will. And the more traction you get, the more interest from VCs and investors you will get, and that you can grow fast. But I think your first target is building out the product to the point where it's getting used, and then go for scalability.
Correct.
So that's amazing. I think you guys are making the right decisions. And so if you could paint me a picture of maybe 2 years from now, where would you be? Where would the company be?
Yeah, so 2 years from now, from our business plan standpoint, right? So in medtech development, there are certain very well laid out inflection points. So you get to your minimum viable product. You assess that viable product in the bench and in an animal model. You publish some papers, and you get physicians interested and aware of what this new innovation is that you are developing. From that point on, you submit to regulatory bodies, Health Canada, FDA, or otherwise, for approvals. You get approved, and then you're able to do you're able to launch and commercialize that product. There's one additional inflection point I forgot to mention, which is your first in human, and that's the very first time. This typically happens before your product has been formally approved, but you get some degree of approval that the FDA or Health Canada might allow you to study your device in a human being for the very first time. So you ask about a 2-year runway. That's what we're targeting in that time frame. We'd like to certainly get to our minimum viable product stage, so that we have something that can be. From that point on, we're not touching the design. We hope to get that in the next 6 to 8 months. Beyond that, it'll be about a year or so of extensive testing and validation in bench and animal models. And from that point on, we'll apply, in about a year and a half from now, we'll apply for approval to do a first-in-human study where we can initially assess the efficacy and safety profile of our product.
Do you know, we have this conversation all the time, especially in medtech, around U.S. versus Canada's first market. There's a ton of medtech companies in town who's only recently had their first inpatient treatment in Canada, because FDA approval is significantly easier, I guess, than Health Canada. Have you already started to see that from your experience working in medtech for as long as you have? Does that kind of affect how you approach both?
Yeah, 100%. So alongside medtech product development is the regulatory piece, as well as the clinical piece. These are all things that you have to spend extensive amount of time on to be able to develop a strategy. Which market are you going to approach first? It's not just a monetary decision or an ease of access decision. It's also a decision about where is a product like this or an innovation like this going to be more easily accepted by the right type of physician demographic who's also going to be interested in helping you test and validate the product. You could absolutely go into a market, but if physicians over there are not interested in helping you assess the validity of your product in a bench or in a model, in an animal model, or a first in human type of procedure, then launching there is going to be extremely difficult for you, and getting regulatory approval is basically going to be impossible. So the U.S.-Canada dynamic, and of course, much is changing at the moment with the U.S. administration, kind of updates that are ongoing. But realistically, the North American market is a key market for us. For Canada, it's a smaller market, absolutely, but we're Canadian, and we want our innovation to impact Canadian lives and to better Canadian lives, even if it's a smaller market. So what we're hoping to do is partner up with the Canadian universities. Most universities are associated with a comprehensive stroke center, and so our goal is to connect with physicians at leading stroke centers across Canada to be able to kick off first in human studies as we start to initially validate our product in about 1.5 to 2 years from now. And then the data that we generate will then support our eventual Health Canada submissions, and we're hoping also be able to support our FDA submission as well.
And not only that, not only for the launching and the first human piece of it, but also as we go through the development side, their feedback is going to be important, and their research aspect is going to be important for us to be able to progress and make a product that is successful.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I learned not more than I thought. That's not the right way to say it. I learned a lot today, and I did not know as much about strokes as I thought I did, which is always the purpose of a podcast, is to learn something and walk away with it. So thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations again on the win and the acceptance into the Forge. This is pretty exciting. Hopefully everyone swipes right on you. Continue to swipe right as we move forward.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. And we hope you never actually need our product, quite frankly. So please take care of yourselves, reduce your smoking, take better care of your health, go out and exercise, reduce your sugar intake, things like that, so that you never end up with a stroke and need a Sensible Vascular solution inside of you. But if there ever comes a day where you need a stroke thrombectomy solution, our hope is that one day we'll be able to offer a safe and effective solution for physicians to intervene with.
Amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to Tech About Town. As always, if you have questions about how Communitech helps founders start, grow, and succeed, you can visit communitech.ca or follow along on social media at Instagram and all the major social media platforms. Mohammed?
Yeah, and I'm Mohammed Kamla here at Communitech. As a founder success manager, I help startups figure out their early business problems. And we're here to help. So if you have any questions, reach out to us on our website, or, my LinkedIn might be shared on the socials. So you can just reach out there and I can connect you with the right people as well.
Also, this episode is brought to you by Elevate IP. They're not currently accepting applications at the moment, but you can always visit communitech.ca to learn more about the program, its offerings, how you can apply for the next cohort. Maybe you guys should apply for the next cohort. Everyone needs IP, because you got to protect it, not neglect it. Visit communitech.ca to learn more. I'm Alex Kinsella.
I'm Mohammed Kamla.
And we'll talk to you soon.